Do you want the best brake performance upgrade for free? It's a bold claim, but I've not done it myself. I've seen top tier racers not do it, and I've seen, fortunately, lots of people at trailheads also not do it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about not bedding in your brakes the right way. Okay, we talk about this process being a bedding in, but effectively it's a bedding in and sharing and pairing sort of deal, where we're pairing rotors and pads together. And with that in mind, it isn't really free because you need new pads, but realistically you probably need new disc brake pads anyway. Now, if you're switching pads and you've already got resin and organic and you're going to move to metal or sintered, you will need a new rotor. We'll explain why later, but effectively you need to match and pair those both together. The process, well, is pretty simple. We're going to slowly and in a controlled way bring the brakes on and build up heat in the whole system. And yeah, that's it. Why we do it in this really controlled and precise way? Because this allows the bonding material between the backing plate and the friction section of the pad to come up to temperature properly. It can cure properly. Some of the friction material actually needs to outgas, so it's got properties that are baked in there and it needs to come up to temperature to release these. And if it's not done in this controlled, sort of stable way, you get, well, not the performance you're looking for. That's why this process can actually build your brake pads and make them last longer and give you more performance. Then we've got to talk about some wizardry and magic about the rotor. You might imagine the rotor up really close is, well, like glass, ultra smooth, but the metal in the rotor is not like that. It's much more porous. It's an open structure. So when we're doing this controlled building up of braking, this bedding in process, we're also pairing the pads and the rotor together. So with the pads alone, we're making sure that that surface is really smooth. But with the rotor, we're transferring that material from the braking pad into the sort of pores and into the gaps into the metal. That's why it's so essential to make sure that you're pairing like for like pads. So if you've used resin pads, you need to stick to that rotor that you've used before. So if you're switching, you've used resin in the past and you're going to move to sintered, you'll need a new rotor. And that's because that pad material is, well, it's in the rotor and they need to work together. The other thing about this controlled way of just layering up the rotor and making sure that we're sort of effectively like filing the surface of the pad down and pairing them together is if you just grab a big chunk of brake, well, that means you're going to have, well, more material in one spot. And that means that as you get used to braking, the brake pad can wear more on this raised section. It also means that, well, the rotor isn't going to do a perfect job because it's not as smooth and as flat as it can be. So bedding in and pairing the rotors to the pads is really important to get the most from your brakes. I found myself a wonderful mellow slope, and this is going to be helpful. It's not essential. You can do this in a flat car park. Okay, saddle up is really useful, not because you need your saddle up, but it's a really good reminder that we're doing controlled and deliberate mellow braking. And that's really important to bring this slow rise in temperature up in the pads and in the backing plate of the pads as well. So we're not charging out, we're not doing sprintables, we're not trying to do loads of skids. So with the saddle up, just pick up to a moderate pace, 15 to 20 kph, and then slow down quite slowly to around a walking pace. Then, well, you need to do it about 15 to 20 times. But again, keep the braking very mellow, keep it moderate and keep it controlled. No stabs on the brakes, we're just ramping up that braking pressure and ramping up very slowly that brake heat in the pads. Step 2, okay, we're going to build up the speed, we're going to move from moderate, we're going to do a little bit faster now, we're going to do 20 to 30 kph. We're still going to slow down in that really controlled and really mellow way to a walking pace. And we still need to be patient. We need to repeat this process around sort of 10 to 15 times. And that means that we're building the temperature up, and now we're going to build it up a little bit more to make sure that everything is as it should be. Now, to reiterate, you do need to be patient with this one. And I know it is a bit of a faff, but this is free and it will give you longer lasting brake pads and better braking for free. So be patient and let's get stuck in. After that last session, do allow your brakes to cool down. Just give it a moment and think about the good work that you've done. Something for free that makes your bike better. Okay, with that, cool down, give it some time, maybe as much as 10 minutes, go and try them, just at a moderate pace. Just pick it up a little bit and don't stop, just to a walking pace. You can feel how much better they are. Isn't that awesome? You've made your brakes better and they're going to last longer. A joyful thing. Now, do be really mindful that while some brake pads and some specific brands need a really regimented scheme to bed them in. So do read the instructions and make sure that you do it exactly as they say. This is just a general overview. Now, I can hear you at the back. Yep, I can hear you in the comments saying you can't be arsed with this and you haven't got time and you need to do it much quicker. There are steps that you can do with some resin pads. It's not recommended by all brands, but I've had some success, and that's a little drop of water just on the fresh pads and you're able to rub them together. And effectively, because you've got a small amount of water and the pad material together, it creates a little grinding paste. Pop those pads in, give them a ride in, and then that helps the bedding in process. It does speed it up, it does weigh your pads out a little bit quicker, but it does get you there a little bit sooner. While we're talking about tips and tricks, another thing that you need to be mindful of is that if you're running really big rotors, they are going to take longer to bed in. That process where we're pairing the pad to the rotor surface, well, there's much more diameter. It's going to take longer. The other thing, though, is that that bigger rotor takes longer to heat up. And related to that, if you're a lighter rider, some of the big rotors that are out there, well, you might not be able to actually bed them in correctly because you can't get enough heat into that rotor. And I know I might sound just like some waffler on the internet, but no, that's actual guidance from Magora. They've got lots of in-depth stuff about the rotor size that you need, because lots of people run to get a bigger rotor when actually they might need to just bed their rotors in and pads in together better. At the start of the video, I did make that really bold claim, but I stand by it. Looking back over kind of all the videos we've done and my experience as kind of a race mechanic and then in working workshops as well, I can't think of another thing that you can do to your bike apart from making sure you've got the right pressure, making sure you oil your chain, and maybe some basic bike fit stuff that can change your bike for the better for free so well as bedding in brakes. So if you're one of the kind of naysayers that say, oh, I've never done this, maybe the next set of pads you've got, give it a try. The worst that can happen is that your brake pads will last longer and perform better. So try it. It is really good. Anyway, what are your secret tips and secret techniques for bedding in brakes? Let me know in the comments down below.